Captain Forrest here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over both these combatants to see who would win more often not in a cross-verse situation, the Dark Army versus the Phoenix 5. Now if you guys are new to my channel, please leave a like, comment down below, and of course subscribe for further content. Also huge shout out to the HQ squad, massive shouts to the team, they are a huge help in my videos, so huge shout out to the team. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Dark Army, give some scaling on them, talk briefly about what they bring to the table, and then I'm going to go ahead and move on and talk about the Phoenix 5, and afterwards I'm going to go ahead and give my final thoughts and then chop it up from there. Now if you guys haven't seen my Pariah video, please, I highly suggest you check that video out. I go into a lot of detail about Pariah and what he's about, but I'll basically be mentioning some of the basic things and some of the important things for the Dark Army. So the Dark Army are a group of villains and avatars of the Great Darkness that are under the Great Darkness's and Pariah's control. Pariah now controls the Dark Army and can summon it whenever he pleases. The Dark Army consists of powerful characters such as Darkseid, Empty Hand, Ares, Doomsday, Upside Down Man, the Quintessence, Spectre, and many other powerful foes, and a wave of shadow demons. The dark chains that were placed around some of the characters who were a part of the Dark Army increases the powers of the host. This is why some of the heroes had trouble dealing with some of the Dark Army members due to them being very strong and literally just like getting a huge amp from those chains. They were a lot stronger than their normal base, a lot stronger than normal. That is why some of the other characters like Wonder Woman, she even notes that, like Ares, who was also under the dark influence and the chains, that he was fighting a lot more different than usual because these characters got a huge amp when they were, under the Great Darkness, when the chains were around them. So which is some really good scaling regardless. The individual characters like Empty Hand, Darkseid, Upside Down Man, Spectre, Quintessence, already on their own, they already have really good scaling. So depending on where you take DC, they would easily range from like High Altiversal Plus, Boundless Plus. If you use character stats and profiles, they're easily reaching the Extraversal Plus tiers of AP, especially if you use certain arguments for DC. So just having the Great Darkness amp with the chains just makes the increases and the transcendences even more smoother. So we got some really good scaling for him regardless. Now the Spectre, who is also a part of the Dark Army, was able to hurt Godstorm Stewart, so even there we got some really good creation level scaling, some really good stuff for the Dark Army in general. Even if the chains are damaged, the Great Darkness's control over them is so strong that the chains will simply regrow and they will simply reform back on the user. So even if you destroy the chains, such as the time where Black Adam did that with his lightning, it didn't matter, the chains just came back and then the Great Darkness's influence was just too strong. The main strategy and tactic in combat for the Dark Army is to overwhelm their opponents and spread their dark influence. This in turn corrupts and takes control of the opponents, making them join the Dark Army and fight for the Great Darkness. Black Adam himself even states to John that the Dark Army will spread their darkness around on every single hero if you engage in combat with them, and it would not be wise to face them head on. So already right off the bat, they've got some good hexes, they're pretty beefy, they're pretty crazy, and that's pretty much it for the Dark Army. There's not a lot to them. It just depends on the type of host that they have, and all their powers get amped, and then they're just a lot more deadlier in combat. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead, talk about the Phoenix 5, and I'm going to chop it up and give my final thoughts on who I think wins more often not in a cross-verse situation. Become the host of the Phoenix Force. You will gain extraordinary hexes and increased stats. In fact, characters like Phoenix Force Namor, Colossus, Majik, Emma Frost, and Cyclops have all demonstrated to embarrass and take down Thor. This Thor was not holding back given the nature of the situation, and that the Phoenix Force is a powerful entity which is not to be taken lightly. They all go on to dominate and embarrass the Avengers during the Avengers vs X-Men run, which would mean Thor would have used his full power in the attempt to take on the Phoenix 5, but unfortunately it amounted to nothing. So let's talk about some of the members. I'm going to start off with Namor. An impressive feat that comes to mind for Namor was when he was able to press a prepped Scarlet Witch in a beam struggle. Namor laid the smackdown on the Avengers with a giant massive area of effect. Namor can imbue his attacks with Phoenix Fire and also flex out a Phoenix Fire area of effect. Namor broke Red Hulk's arm and then goes on to demonstrate an insane endurance feat by taking a massive beatdown from the Avengers, which actually just annoyed and enraged Namor even more. A good resistance feat for Namor was when he was able to take a chi punch from Iron Fist. Now of course, I've mentioned before, the Iron Fist is chi, and chi itself affects you on a physical, spiritual and mental level, and Namor was able to eat this. Pretty impressive. We even see Namor in the current Avengers run. During the Avengers saga, he was able to gain back the Phoenix Force powers as he was a participant in the Phoenix Games. He is able to amp his sea creatures with his Phoenix powers and control them and have them aid him in battle. Namor is able to coat the ocean with his flames and also create fissures underwater to cause his opponents to fall and drown in them. Namor should also come with his inherent powers, such as becoming more stronger and faster when he's underwater or hydrated. And lastly, Namor is also able to lace his trident with Phoenix Force fire. So that's going to round up Namor, and his general abilities and hacks are pretty much all amped by the Phoenix Force's powers, which applies to the other users. Let's move on to Colossus. An interesting hack for the Phoenix Force members, including Phoenix Force Colossus, is that the heat that passively comes off their bodies is so hot that their opponents, even getting close and physically attacking them, was beginning to burn their hands. Now there isn't a lot of crazy hacks that Colossus demonstrates in character with the powers, but he should naturally have the ability to flex Phoenix Force fire and lace his attacks with these flames, alongside with other inherent mutant powers like his organic steel body, which increases his AP, speed, durability, and also makes him bulletproof and invulnerable to conventional attacks. So I'm gonna go ahead, move on to Magik. Magik has a laundry list of things that I will cover in this video. So Magik can lace her soul sword with Phoenix Force fire and attack her opponents. There's more to Magik's sword than meets the eye. Magik can manifest the sword out of her own essence at any time. Attacks from the soul sword affect you on a physical, spiritual and mental level as the sword decomporates the opponents. The soul sword has holy properties and is designed to vanquish evil and demonic entities, and the sword has magical nullifying properties as magic cannot affect the sword, and the sword can destroy anything that is of magical origin. This is all backed up by some portion of the power of the Phoenix Force that was granted to her. Magik's sword also has greater durability negation, as it was able to slice through Cap's shield. This is impressive, as not even Wolverine's claws can even scratch the shield, and the adamantium claws themselves have durability negation, as it's been stated they can slice through almost anything. Magik's soul sword is able to neg intangibility, as Kitty Pryde addresses that her intangibility does not work against Magik's sword, which is very impressive. Magik can also lace her soul sword with magic and blast it at her opponents. Magik and her sword is so powerful, Magik stabbed her soul sword in the ground, which tears the very fabric of Limbo asunder. Similar to the Howl Lords in Marvel, Magik is in her element when she's inside her realm, Limbo. She and her magic is stronger inside the realm. Her rage alone was affecting Limbo. For those who aren't aware, Limbo is a conceptual realm that exists beyond the concepts of space and time, and she was able to affect it all. Magik was also able to best Doctor Strange in her own realm. Now, let's talk a little bit more so about Limbo. So Magik has countermeasures for those who try to teleport inside Limbo. Limbo is filled with hellfire and burning souls. Magik can take a piece out of Limbo and add it to the mortal plane. Limbo prevents you from creating portals, and Limbo also blocks teleportation. Limbo is not bound by nature's law and is a place of transcendental evil where anything is possible. Magik can summon demons from Limbo to aid her in combat. Magik can also summon vines in Limbo, which bind you down and drain your life force. This also covers your whole body, which chokes and drowns you. The vines also have a mind of their own. Majik can also leave you inside limbo for her demons to attack you, and staying inside limbo for too long also corrupts you and makes you go insane. Gambit was corrupted by the maddening effects of limbo. Majik has also shown to be quite sadistic, as Majik ties up some of the Avengers and has their minds and souls be feasted upon by demons inside limbo. Inside limbo, Majik is ruler. She can do whatever she likes, as the realm is a reflection of herself, and her will becomes reality inside the realm. More onto Majik's magical powers and miscellaneous stuff. Majik herself can enter into her demonic state even on the mortal plane. When Majik is in this form, she is very powerful. This side of Majik she keeps suppressed, as she doesn't want to reflect that side of her to people, but it's later shown in the New Mutants that it was the Beyonder himself that showed Majik that her demonic powers were a gift and a responsibility and something not to be ashamed of. Over the years, Majik's magic skills are boosted ever since she trained with Doctor Strange. She also demonstrates some incredible showings and feats with her magic. She can vaporize people to dust with her magic. She can blast concussive magic bolts. She can blind or restrain her opponents with mystic chains. She's also tied up Thor in Phoenix fire chains and dunked him in a volcano. She can also coat her magic in Phoenix fire, such as fire talon constructs, which physically damage Scarlet Witch, which is very impressive. She can also cast a spell to transmutate you into a slug. Majik's rage was warping and twisting and distorting her teammates, which was causing them great pain. Majik can also use hypnosis on people. She can cast a spell to break her body out of paralysis gunk. Majik removes some of Stevie's memories so that she does not remember the dark truths of Limbo and what actually transpires for the mutants, and of her sorcery. Majik has magical and conventional senses and scanning. She can hear every word her friends say despite them speaking discreetly, and she's able to scan for mystic traces to know if somebody's under possession. Majik has a unique ability she likes to use a lot, and that is her portal disc. Majik's portal disc moves through time and space and can teleport her back in time or any point in history and through the cosmos. She can BFR objects and people inside Limbo, such as BFRing Cap's shield. She's used her portals to summon demons to aid her, and she's used her portals tactically by summoning it behind her opponent and have her demons grab her unsuspecting foe to Limbo without them noticing to the last minute. She's used her portal as a pseudo shield to teleport projectile attacks from her enemies, and also uses her teleportation ring to negate durability by teleporting a portion of Warlock's arm away. Lastly, she can instinctively activate her portal when she's in danger. Now, let's move on to some of the other things that Majik has. So, Majik can phase through physical, spiritual, and mental and magic attacks as she's phased through her own sword strike. She can view past events from different timelines and also view what transpires on Earth while in Limbo, and she can astral project too. Finally, resistances. Majik herself and her armor provides her resistances against many things. An impressive resistance feat for Majik was when Emma Frost was unable to affect Majik's mind. Not even Charles Xavier can read Majik's mind. Charles and Emma are one of the most powerful telepaths in Marvel and are Omega level threats. Majik was even able to resist Karma's mind hacks / fear manipulation. Majik is resistant to possession / corruption. Majik's soul sword protects and shatters the bonds the Shadow had on Majik. If her powers are stripped from her, she can take it back no problem. Empath's empathy manipulation prove useless inside Majik's realm, as her will and power reign supreme inside the realm, rendering his hacks completely ineffective, as the realm not only increases her stats but also her hacks resistances. Even outside the realm, his empathy manipulation doesn't even work on Majik. Majik also has resistance to transmutation. The soul sword purges the transmode virus from Majik's body, which turns you and your DNA into a techno-organic construct, and it can also corrupt you. Majik also has taken magical attacks too. Magik's armor also protects her from transmutation as well, which is impressive. Magik's armor instinctively protects Magik. Magik's armor protects her from magic, spiritual and mental attacks, as Sims attacks Magik with her own soul sword, and her armor instinctively grows spikes to block the attack. After exercising Cloak and Dagger's powers, which both attempted to possess and take control of Magik's mind and soul, she uses her sheer willpower to summon the Soul Sword, to restore her tainted sword, and herself to cast away both powers back to Wolfsbane and Sunspot. Now time in Limbo is different compared to Earth, as the rules of time on Earth do not apply the same to Limbo as existing inside Limbo. Years would go by, as years in Limbo would equate to seconds on Earth, and Magik is just fine inside that realm. So that's going to round up Phoenix Force Magik. Let's go over the White Queen herself, Emma Frost. So Phoenix Force Emma Frost demonstrates some impressive feats during her time as a host. Her ruthlessness and her telepathic abilities were greatly increased. Emma Frost notes that she could end it all, as Emma can enter inside everyone's mind and just switch their brains off. She's literally tortured a person and was able to kill them with her mind powers alone. Emma Frost's mind hacks is so potent, she was able to mind hacks all of the mutants to submission. Emma Frost was still able to sense where Transonic was after Transonic was BFR to Wakanda. Emma Frost is not just ruthless when it comes to mind hacks, she also shows this when she is given her Phoenix Force powers. Emma Frost is able to casually set Hawkeye on fire. Emma Frost repels Spider-Woman and Black Widow's attacks and fires a Phoenix Fire Blast at them. Emma can also create a force field, which is strong enough to block Hex attacks from Wanda. She also damages Wanda by firing a blast of Phoenix Force fire at her. She can also flex out a giant AoE of Phoenix Fire, and she was able to also take a hit from the Hulk while off guard, and also get up afterwards and press the Hulk with her fire. The other Phoenix Force hosts share the same unique powers and resistances, such as Emma Frost and Cyclops surviving in inhospitable places. A unique feature for Emma Frost's second mutation: upon gaining a portion of the Phoenix Force, her diamond form is more stronger and durable, and if her diamond body is destroyed, she can put herself back together and even use her own shards to attack her opponents. That's going to round up Emma Frost. Now lastly, the leader of the X-Men and the Phoenix Five himself, Cyclops. Now Cyclops with the Phoenix Force was able to one-shot the Avengers with a casual massive Phoenix Force fire area of effect with just a gesture. All of the Phoenix Force members can fly and survive in space. Cyclops gained some telepathic powers through the Phoenix Force, allowing him to telepathically communicate with people and read minds. Cyclops displays mental resistances to Professor X's own mind hacks. He attacks back with his own, which killed Charles in the process, which is very impressive. Cyclops is able to use telekinesis, such as grabbing hold of Iron Fist telekinetically and singeing him with Phoenix Force fire. Cyclops' mere presence cooked Wolverine's ass. This version of Cyclops is more dangerous and uncaring. He will resort to using full-powered optic blasts to dispatch of his enemies in character, rather than his more rational, strategic and tactical self with his optic blasts, when he normally uses low to mid frequency early on in the fights. Cyclops is also able to tear through dimensions, such as tearing his way into Kung Lu. Okay, so that's going to round up both these combatants. I'm going to go ahead and give my final thoughts on who I think wins more often than not in a cross-verse situation. So in terms of AP, depending on what tiering system you use, if you obviously downplay the DC cosmology, both Marvel and like DC are pretty relative in certain regards, especially in this matchup. So if we like take it down a notch easily, the Phoenix Five have shown some scaling of Ultraversal, High Ultraversal, even Boundless. You can even take it to Extraversal depending on what arguments you use for Marvel. It's very easy to argue it, so there's some good avenues you can take the Phoenix Five. However, I feel like the transcendences, the layers into the tiers for the Dark Army, especially from the Great Darkness, and I've gone over the Great Darkness on this channel, I think the AP favors more the Dark Army than the Phoenix 5. I think there's just not enough transcendences or just not enough concrete feats to kind of help them get higher into those tiers. So I definitely think that the Dark Army have more AP going into this, but I don't think it's like, you know, complete washout. They're still in the same tier. It's just, you know, the Dark Army just have more transcendences and they're a lot more stronger. Now speed, I don't really think speed's going to be too much of an issue, but if you really go down into the nitty gritty, you could argue the Dark Army having more layers into the tiers of immeasurable speed, irrelevant speed. Just depends on what metas you use for DC and Marvel. So if you use like just standard stuff, then they're pretty relative, but you could also argue the speed edge for the Dark Army. So anyway, let's move on to this. So obviously the Phoenix 5, they're very hacksy. They have mind hacks, telekinesis. Cyclops has his optic blast. Again, in character, Cyclops is very ruthless. He doesn't suppress himself in this state. He's a lot more arrogant, a lot more egocentric, and he will utilize a lot of hacks in combat. Emma Frost, she will utilize her diamond form. She will utilize her nasty mind hacks too. She also has ways to come back, especially with the Phoenix 5 and their Phoenix Force powers. So if Emma Frost's diamond form gets destroyed, she can reform it, and she can use her own, you know, broken shards of diamonds to attack her opponents. And of course Majik is built different. If Majik summons, she can summon Limbo. She can use all her nasty hacks and her magic abilities. So that will actually help her in combat too. Majik, in my opinion, I think she could be a threat if she does summon Limbo, because I'd give her an edge. However, when we look at other things like the other members like Namor, he has good AP as well, especially against Scarlet Witch. Just depends on what scaling you use. But Namor, again, just straight up AP. Again, he's just a raw heavy hitter going into this. He's built different. Colossus, kind of the same thing. You know, some of the members don't really utilize a lot of those hexes. They usually utilize physical AP and speed a lot, but for the most part, a lot of them do use Phoenix Fire, which can burn you. So they do use that a lot in combat. Now, I think the main issue here for the Phoenix 5 is the Great Darkness and how it works, right? So we all know that Pariah corrupted the Great Darkness, and that's why the corruption is spreading all around creation. It's causing a big issue. I've already mentioned about like the whole thing with the Dark Army. If the Dark Army get into fisticuffs and they battle with the Phoenix 5, that's going to be a huge issue. The dark influence will spread. It will spread like wildfire. It will spread like the plague. If they get into a confrontation with them, especially with the potency advantage going in their favor, Cyclops, Emma Frost, if they get claimed, they're going to literally be fighting their own team. That's going to be an issue. Now you could argue some resistances. Hey, you know, telepaths do have resistances. Emma Frost has shown mental resistances, same with Cyclops. However, the Great Darkness is just built different. The conceptual, like, control, the dark influence, especially with the whole thing about the Great Darkness, it's a lot more fundamental. So I don't really see, like, Phoenix Force Cyclops or Emma Frost or any of the other members being able to resist something that potent. In fact, we've seen Majik even get claimed and like manipulated by Dormammu. Like, she wasn't able to escape Dormammu's control. So they're very susceptible to being under control, under the, you know, the influence. They do have some really good mind resistances. However, I just think it's a little bit out of their pay grade in comparison to the Dark Army. The potency is just way too much. So if that does occur in the combat, that can be a huge issue. They just get claimed, they start fighting each other, and then until they all either die or they all become a part of the Dark Army, and that's going to be a huge issue. So that is why I give victory to the Dark Army. I say about mid difficulty. It's just the hexes, the dark influence is built different. They're not going to get out of it. It's too fundamental. It's too disruptive. It's too crazy. And even if we argue, you know, some of the members being able to fight some of the other, like, members like Empty Hand and stuff, I just think the gap is just too big. And plus, they get gangbanged. You know, the army's huge. If Cyclops starts, like, pressing some of them, it's like, okay, you know, Doomsday will jump on. The Darkseid will jump in. It's like Cribs and Bloods, except, you know, the Cribs got more numbers. So they're just going to start beating up the Phoenix 5. They're going to get outnumbered. They're going to get overwhelmed. So that's why I have to give victory to the Dark Army. Just built different, way too strong, way too powerful, got too much muscle on their hands. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave your thoughts on the comment section. But yes, it's been real. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.